Hi everyone, it is Yasmin here from Nutrition by Yasmin, and in this week's video I wanted to talk all about meal timing. So does it matter, and is it something that we should be looking at and considering? So this is a topic that I discuss a lot with my clients, so we don't just speak about what foods they may be consuming, but also we look at their dietary patterns and timings that they are consuming food as well. So one of the larger areas of research over the past few years has been looking at the time that we consume our food, otherwise known as time-restricted feeding. So this is a type of intermittent fasting that you may have heard of. And the research looks at restricting your eating window, or the time that you eat your food. The research looks at restricting that. So for example, consuming your food within a 12-hour period, a 10-hour period, or sometimes even as small as an 8-hour period. And the research has been looking at this in terms of risks of weight gain, and diseases such as cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And the research so far is looking quite promising, and it looks like the time that you consume your food in does really have an impact, and that's regardless of what food you are consuming. So that's a really interesting area of research, and what I wanted to focus on today is more so the timing of our meal. So it might be within that eating window, or more specifically the timing of our evening meal. So there was a recent study that came out earlier on this year or later last year, and it looked at, there was only 20 participants, so it was a fairly small scale study, but what they looked at was the impact of having your evening meal at a routine time, which they called 6 p.m, or a later dinner time of 10 p.m. And what the researchers found was that the people, or those that consumed the dinner at 6 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. Had lower, about 18% lower blood sugar level response to that meal, and also their fatty acid oxidation, so the amount of fat that they burnt from that meal, was 10% higher in the people when they consumed the dinner at 6 p.m. as opposed to 10 p.m. So what this means is that our body is affected by the evening meal time, and actually that our body is more effective at processing the same meal when it was consumed a bit earlier on in the evening. Now we can see that the meal time and the timing of the evening meal does matter, but there was also another study that looked at the difference in consuming the same meal in participants between consuming the meal in the morning at 9 a.m. and the meal in the evening or later in the afternoon at 5 p.m. And what they found is, again, the body is more effective at metabolizing the same meal at 9 a.m. as opposed to at 5 p.m. So what does this mean for us, you might be asking? Well, the researchers of the evening meal study commented that if a 10 p.m. dinner were to occur regularly and become a routine occurrence, then this could well contribute to increased weight gain, and therefore increases in the risk of diseases such as type 2 diabetes, as these diseases are associated with increased blood sugar levels. So that's just a consideration. So they could impact our weight and they could impact our disease risk, but also I think it's just highlighting that our circadian rhythm, so our body clocks, do come into it as well. So we should try and be more in tune with the light and dark cycles that happen, and we should try and eat in a way that replicates that. So for example, avoiding eating very late at night and larger meals in the evening. So you may have heard the phrase to eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. So a very, age-old saying, but actually this research that I've highlighted today may actually back that up. And what this might mean for us is that if we can, then maybe we should try and consume our larger meal in the morning, and the meal size and the energy density of our meals should, if we can, decrease as the day goes on. So if we can start to have lighter meals in the evening, then that may be more beneficial. So this time of year, so I'm currently recording this at the end of June, this time of year is a really good time to trial that if you are interested and wanted to give it a go. So when the weather is a bit hotter, a bit warmer, we might favour lighter meals such as salads, for example. So this, like I said, could be a really good time to trial that out. Now, just a few considerations. The research that I have highlighted here today, as I said, were done firstly with healthy people, so people that do have underlying conditions. The results for those may be different, and also the studies were quite small scale, so about 20 people in each study. So obviously that does not replicate the entire population, and therefore more research around these areas of meal timing needs to be done, and ideally with larger samples of people. And also just to mention that the bedtime in the 6 p.m. dinner or the 10 p.m. dinner, the bedtime of these people was kept to about 11 p.m. So obviously if you're eating your dinner earlier, then you've got a larger gap between your bedtime, whereas the people that were consuming dinner at 10 p.m, they were then going to bed at 11 p.m. So if the bedtime of those having the later dinner was later, the effects may have been different. And also finally, just to highlight that other things do come into play. So we know that we might have commitments, we might have long commutes, we might have work in the evening. So there will be things in your personal life that may prevent you from eating in a way that we have described today. So again, we're all different, but just to try and find a way that works for you. So eating earlier if you can, but if you're going to have the odd, say you're on holiday and you have the odd meal that you consume much later, or you have a celebration, a birthday, a wedding, then that's fine. It's just that we should try and not make these late dinners something that is normal, and maybe just keep them for the odd occasion. So that's all from me today. Do send me any questions or comments that you have on this topic, as I would love to discuss them. Thanks for watching.